Good evening. This is Monday, August 11th, 85 days until the 2008 presidential election, with hundreds of Americans in harm's way, with a Russian invasion today bringing all-out war to the soil of a strategic U.S. ally, with Russia blasting America for helping that ally, with thousands dead in just the past 5 days. We now have our first real-time test of how the presidential candidates would respond to a serious global crisis. Our fifth story tonight. After suggesting his opponent was acting too presidential too soon, John McCain has done some acting of his own, while letting his top foreign policy advisor continue to act as a lobbyist for one of the countries at war. In supposedly swing state Pennsylvania today, McCain adopted presidential imagery and gave a presidential speech in appearance, if not delivery, about today's invasion of Georgia, a much smaller neighbor that broke away from Moscow in the 90s and has been moving away politically further for several years. But McCain did not address questions such as, why did the U.S. permit Georgia to march last week into the capital of South Ossetia, one of Georgia's two breakaway regions, both with strong ties to Moscow, which claimed Georgia's move threatened thousands of Russian citizens there? Why did the U.S. knowingly provoke Moscow for years by building up Georgia's military? Why did the vice president talk about making sure Russia was not unanswered when we have no intention to go to war with them, to say nothing of having no troops? And why is McCain's top foreign policy advisor still Randy Schooneman, while his company is still paid to lobby for Georgia? Instead, McCain rattled sabers as if voters had already said they were his to rattle.
This would be unacceptable to all the democratic countries of the world and should draw us together in universal condemnation of Russian aggression. Russian President Medvedev and Prime Minister Putin must understand the severe long-term negative consequences that their government's actions will have for Russia's relationship with the United States and Europe.
By contrast, in calling for a return to the status quo before Georgia marched into South Ossetia, Obama used language rejecting McCain's geopolitical simplicity, suggesting that Georgia also stepped out of line.
Russian peacekeeping troops should be replaced by a genuine international peacekeeping force. Georgia should refrain from using force in South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and a political settlement must be reached that addresses the status of these disputed regions.
McCain's language, meanwhile, was echoed by the architects of the Iraq War. Vice President Cheney saying, quote, Russian aggression must not go unanswered. Fellow neocon William Kristol arguing that Georgia's participation in Iraq means, quote, we owe Georgia a serious effort to defend its sovereignty. Surely we cannot simply stand by. And troubling as the neocon echoes are, perhaps more embarrassing, two elements of McCain's speech. One, this report from CQPolitics.com, wherein a Wikipedia editor pointing out at least three passages from McCain's speech today that it says most people would consider to have been derived directly from Wikipedia. Maybe he can use the internets. And point two about the speech and its echoes of Iraq, offered without comment this moment of candor.
We have other important interests, strategic interests at stake in Georgia, especially the continued flow of oil through the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, which Russia attempted to bomb in recent days.
More drilling off the coast of Georgia. Following Mr. Bush's lead on Georgia may be difficult for Mr. McCain. The president began the day disengaged from the crisis. Literally, he was in China, and in his comments during an exclusive interview with Bob Costas at the Olympics for NBC Sports.
It was just interesting to me that here we are, trying to promote peace and harmony, and we're witnessing a conflict take place.
Right, no Olympic truce in this case.
There wasn't, and I was very firm with Vladimir Putin, and he and I have got a good relationship, just like I was firm with the Russian president.
Despite his Olympic chat with Putin, Putin invaded today anyway. And tonight the president sounded much more like McCain, making demands without backing them up.
Russia's government must respect Georgia's territorial integrity and sovereignty. The Russian government must reverse the course it appears to be on and accept this peace agreement as a first step toward resolving this conflict.
Those demands possibly undercut by Mr. Bush's own inability to keep clear which country was invaded today.
It now appears that an effort may be underway to depose Russia's duly elected government.
Let's bring in a former senior director at the National Security Council, Flint Leverett, now a senior fellow at the New Americas Foundation. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Thanks for having me.
What can we interpret from what we heard? How exactly would a President McCain defend Georgia in this?
Well, Senator McCain has made clear in his presidential campaign that he would continue, and I would say even exaggerate, the failed and counterproductive approach of the Bush administration to Russia. Senator McCain says he wants to kick Russia out of the G8. He wants to provide military assistance to Georgia. As your setup noted, his chief foreign policy advisor has been a paid lobbyist for the Georgian government for several years. As bad as U.S.-Russian relations are right now under the Bush administration's approach, if you project forward a year from now, 18 months from now, under a McCain administration, U.S.-Russian relations could get significantly worse.
Obama, in his statement, calling for Georgia to disavow force, obviously you can count on McCain pouncing on that. What can you say about it?
Well, this is a problem that Senator Obama faces on a number of issues, not just this one. To the extent that he wants to try and take a more nuanced approach, appreciate all of the complexities of a difficult issue, because he doesn't reflexively want to resort to force or to draw lines that the U.S. wouldn't be able to defend anyway. He's always open to the charge of being weak. Certainly, Senator McCain would try to make that point. What's sad is that there are many within Senator Obama's own Democratic Party who would also want to take this bellicose, hot air approach to Russia over this issue. I mean, you just look at a senior figure in the party like Richard Holbrooke and the editorial that he had in today's Washington Post. It's basically, there's a very powerful group of what I would call neoconservative fellow travelers in the Democratic Party, and a lot of these people were attached to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Now the Obama campaign is trying to figure out how to take some of these people in. And I think there's a risk that Senator Obama could, in the end up ceding control or shaping the direction of his policy on important issues to some of these elements.
And as you say, this requires a very nuanced response, because we've slapped the back of both of these countries, apparently at both of them at the wrong time. President Bush's famous expression of his naivete about looking into Putin's eyes early on and getting that sense of his soul, and then basically neglecting Russia when it didn't do exactly what we wanted it to for 5 years. And then this is supposed to be Condi Rice's area of expertise. At the same time that Russia was mishandled, did we not essentially, or the administration not essentially, stoke the fires of this conflict by the way we have contributed to the building up of Georgia and sort of encouraged its president to do something like this?
Absolutely. We are where we are in this situation in no small part because the Bush administration, Senator McCain, and sadly a lot of very senior Democrats willfully ignored an important reality, namely that Russia has become a much richer, much more powerful country, a country that can act autonomously to defend what it sees as important interests, even when those actions don't please the United States. And at this point, there's very little that the United States has to respond. Are we not going to buy, will Europe not buy Russian gas? Is the United States not going to let Russia help fund its current account deficit?
It's more than complex. Flint Leverett of the New Americas Foundation, formerly a senior director at the NSC. As ever, sir, thank you for your time.